Oh, good evening, everybody. We have had so much trouble getting hooked up. I think Google are doing their usual thing of the Google gremlins are out there. Anyway, good evening to everyone. This is Photography Live and Uncut, episode number 79. And my guest this evening is Bruce Clement from Canada. Welcome to Live and Uncut, Bruce.
Good evening, Paul. How are you?
Oh, very good, thank you. Very good. Well, apart from the gremlins, which we've had just for this past half an hour almost, isn't it? Anyway.
Well, it might be timely because I've been talking to some friends, and
Right.
Instead of you interviewing me, we'd like to interview you.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I'm open to that. So, cool. This is going to be different, isn't it? This is going to be really, really strange for me. Okay, fire away. You're in charge then. You're in charge.
Well, welcome to Photography Live and Uncut. I'm your host this evening, and my guest is the former host and soon-to-be host again, Paul Griffiths. Welcome to your show, Paul.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you. Great surprise. Much appreciated. Thank you.
So I figure I'll give it a bit of a background on where this came from, and it's I've been following your show for quite some time now, and it struck me as the fact that I know you're an accomplished photographer unto yourself, and you seem to be missing amongst the cast of well, I guess we're up to 79 now.
Yeah.
For your show. So I thought, I was curious as to the man behind the show and your photography, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to bring you into your own show and let the world know a bit about you.
Well, it's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, it's 79 shows. It's been really enjoyable talking to all the guests I have. So I hope I don't let the show down by being the guest.
I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I think I'll start off. I'm going to try and follow your format.
Okay.
And I know one of your favorite first places to start is talking about your first exposure to a camera, either at home or of yourself. So what was your first memory of a camera? And what was it?
This is the reason why I asked this question, actually, because I remembered as a young kid, every Friday I used to go to my grandparents for tea after school. And I was allowed to play with my father's toys and my grandfather's toys in a sort of an understairs cupboard, and in there was a blue box, a box brownie, basically, that sort of thing. Couldn't understand a thing what it was about. I knew there's a little screen in the top and a little screen on the front. Not a clue what it was, and I used to just play with it. So that was my first recollection of what was really, I suppose, it was a blue coloured, but I suppose very similar to the box brownie.
Oh, that's really good. And when did you finally get your hands-on one to actually start taking pictures?
Well, that wasn't till a lot later. I must have been about 16 or 17, I suppose. And I was whilst at school, the guys had got together with one of their masters and said, look, can we have a school trip down to watch the Monaco Grand Prix? So the teacher said, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Who's got cameras? And a couple of guys said, yeah, I've got a camera. I can borrow my dad's. And my mum and dad didn't take any photographs at all, apart from having a sort of like a small compact camera. And I had an Instamatic 110. And that's what I took to the Monaco Grand Prix. 1976. It was a glorious summer. And we went and watched the Grand Prix down there. I know Niki Lauda won it. Clay Regazzoni blew up in front of us, and the two Tyrrells came second and third. Thoroughly enjoyed the event. Got some great photographs, actually. Didn't miss a shot. Well, you wouldn't with that camera. No, but it was that sort of event, which and seeing all the photographs afterwards when we got back, I think I'd like to get a camera myself, and saved up a few quid and went and bought a Zenit E, one of those Russian brick jobs, with a 50, I think it was a 55mm lens, and that started it off. So it's about 1976. So yeah, I was about sort of like 16, 17 at the time.
Very good, very good. It's interesting when you run across some of these new, well, not new. You look at some of the gadgets you grew up with. I was the same as you. My first recollection is of a brownie, and I actually remember more the flash bulbs than I do the camera itself.
Right.
And it was the same thing. It was in a cupboard someplace, and I remember looking at photographs. I've always been fascinated with photography, and especially things like National Geographic. So
Mm.
My introduction kind of mirrored your own. Did you find when you started out that you had a preference in the kinds of photography that you like to do?
No, I didn't really, because using the Zenit, I just basically took anything and everything which I could see at the time. So I took a lot of photographs of my family and my dog, especially. I had a lovely golden retriever, and I remember one time my uncle came along who had 4 black retrievers. He used to train them for hunting, for gun dogs, and I remember he had the 4 blacks sitting there, and my golden was sitting there. I took that photograph, and it was hilarious just to try and get the dogs to line up and sit properly. But I didn't. It's really strange actually, because although I had that camera, I tried a little bit of darkroom work as well. But I was such a keen sportsman at school. Photography didn't really sort of grab me until a lot later, probably until I was around about 23, 24. But I never got on with the Zenit. The Zenit had this very strange diaphragm where you had to physically close the aperture down. It wasn't an automatic aperture. So you compose, set the exposure, and then which was through the light meter, and then you'd have to close the aperture down, which was really weird. And the amount of times I forgot to do that was so annoying. So it wasn't a camera which really I got on with, to be honest with you.
So from the Zenit, what did you end up moving on to?
Well, it wasn't until basically around about I would be around about 2021, where I bought the Nikon EM, which is a aperture priority camera, very small. I've still got one in actual fact. This isn't the original one because I obviously sold on, but it's quite a neat little camera actually. It's aperture priority, as I say, and they were doing a deal at the time, Nikon, the cashback deal, and I got a couple of lenses and the body with the motor drive, and that's when I really started to get involved and interested in photography and doing a lot more. Again, just local stuff, family and the like, and we had by now as a family moved closer to an aerodrome called Biggin Hill, which is quite famous for the Second World War. So I would be able to get up there and take quite a lot of photographs of the aircraft, especially when they were doing the display.
That's wonderful. I mean, I guess it's nice to have good subjects nearby.
Yeah.
If you're living out in the middle of a field someplace, you get somewhat less to work from.
Yeah.
You're a street photographer now.
Yeah.
How did you find you moved kind of into that? I know that you travel quite a bit, and how did you find that you were slowly kind of focused on into your preferred genre? Yeah,
well, it's interesting you asked that question actually, because there was a period of time where I think a lot of us we get into photography, we fall out of photography because certain things happen in your life. You get married, children arrive, you take loads of photographs of the children, and then it's all hands on deck, isn't it, to look after the children?
Yes.
And then from my aspect, being a bit of a sportsman, I still carried on playing a little bit of rugby, and I was playing a lot of golf then. But then when my work changed, I used to work in the city in London, and I ended up working with the family business, which is in exhibitions. And the first couple of trips I went out to these cities, and I really got quite bored, to be quite honest, with nothing to do, until someone said, why didn't you take a camera? I didn't even think about taking the camera. And it was then that I started to take photographs of the cities that I was visiting. So I was very fortunate: Madrid, Valencia, Paris, Dusseldorf and Frankfurt, those sort of places, which obviously after the Second World War, a lot of those are modern cities now, but it really was quite interested. But the main thing was, which is the funny part from my aspect, I didn't want any people in them. I just wanted to take the photographs of the architecture. That's what I was interested in. And it wasn't until, which I know we're going to talk about later, because I was going to ask you the question about it, and I'll get the impression you've made notes about the Arcanum. And it wasn't until I was invited to join the Arcanum that I realized I'd been doing so much street photography before in the first place. Up until then, I really was architecture, a little bit of sport photography. I used to go down the local park and watch the guys play football and take photographs of the football players and stuff like that. So, yeah, real street photography with the human element, as Valerie Jardin would call it, didn't really start until I joined the Arcanum. Up until then, it's sort of been more sort of an urban type thing of more architecture and that sort of thing.
Okay, I mean, I know a lot of street photographers. It's a difficult thing to get into. There's a certain competence level to it.
Yeah.
Myself, I've been interested in trying it, but I actually haven't gotten it very much, and my gear doesn't lend itself to call it the stealth approach. When you're out doing when you get started to really focus on street photography, how did you get past the I guess the potential difficulty in taking pictures, candid pictures of people that you don't know, just on the street?
Again, I think this is all down to practice. I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel when you're out in the street, and you're not necessarily looking for a person. You're looking, if you can, to create some form of a story or some form of a scene which is taking place. And I think the more you go out and take photographs of street scenes and you know how people work and walk and behave, that helps you as time goes on. Now, it's not easy to stop someone and take a portrait by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I still find it difficult myself, but that is coming to be an easier process, because at the end of the day, and I used to believe in this when I was in sales, it's only a no. And if it's a no, then you've got to look forward to the yes. The yes is going to come. And it's almost like saying, I'm glad she said no, because the next one could be a yes. And I can honestly say I've only had 3 people, I think, that have said no to me in the street. Generally said, yeah, okay, I don't mind, take a photograph. But it is a very difficult line to cross. And I think also another thing is, if you get into the mode of having a longer lens on your camera, some guys go out with an 18-135 or even longer in zoom lenses, 18-200s, and all sorts of gear that they take out. It makes you, in actual fact, it creates you to be sort of divorced from what's actually going on, because you feel safe with the distance. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you force yourself to go to a 35 or 50 mil, or even lower than that, 27s and 24s, that makes you get forward and into the action. And by doing that, I think it's the practice of it doing it, and you become more familiar and more sort of comfortable working in close quarters with people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've in reading up on street photography and the style, and I can't remember who quoted it, but basically the gist of what they said was that the vast majority of people do actually like to have their picture taken. Mm-hmm. And it's, the barrier seems to be more on the photographer's side than it is on the subject side. And in most cases, people are happy to, and they might be interested to see the image, or can I get a copy of it later?
Yeah.
And in some cases, they just take the picture and off they go. How would you, I guess, what would you be your most memorable experience in taking somebody's picture and having an over the top, fantastic, positive reaction to doing it?
That's a really good question. I think there was a period of time where, in actual fact, it goes back to the Arcanum discussion. We had a hangout once with 4 of the guys from the street cohort, and I was talking about crossing this boundary. And one of the ladies in the group, Susan Gouge, lovely lady, said she's one of these ladies that could just, her husband would be off doing the shopping, and she'd take her camera and off she'd go, take the photographs. And she was saying, Paul, they can only say no, just go and ask them. So at the end of the conversation, she said, are you going out shooting this weekend, Paul? So I said, yes. She said, get me 7. Go and get me 7 street portraits. And I said, you're on. And she said, if you don't feel comfortable, stop. She said, but you go and get me 7. 5 will do, she said, but try and get 7. Well, in actual fact, that weekend I did go out to a place in London called Covent Garden. Covent Garden is a beautiful canopied market area where you get people selling their items of jewelry or photographs of little paintings and clothing and the like. And I was in this area and I thought, well, if I don't get a photograph here, I will never get a photograph. And the first person I went up to was a guy selling some jewelry. And I just said, would you mind if I took your photograph? And he went, why? So I said, I'm doing a project. I've been given this challenge. I've got to take 5 street portraits today. And he said, yeah, sure. Okay, no problem at all. And I got the photograph, and that gave me a lift. Then I went to another guy selling our jewelry, and he was, in actual fact, had walked away from me standing. Such a really interesting face. I don't know whether you have it over in the States or in Canada there. Cat Weasel. Would you remember Cat Weasel at all? It was a scarecrow that came to life, and he was an old wizard, and he had this lovely long beard, this fella. Very sort of goatee type beard. And I said to him, I said, would you mind if I took your photograph? He said, no, not at all. Where do you want me to stand? So I said, well, in front of your stall, if that would be okay. So the point I'm making here, I got 4 photographs of 4 stall sellers, and they were all delighted. And the last one, in actual fact, said to me, what are you going to do with the photograph? And I said, it's part of a project. It's not going to be put on Flickr until later, unless you've got any objection. He said, no, I've got no objection at all. He said, have you got a card? Now, this is a really good tip. Have you got a sort of like a business card? And at the time I hadn't. I said, no, but if you give me, I've got your details. I'll send you an email. And if you want the photograph, I'll send it to you. As it turned out, I sent the email to him and he didn't reply, so I haven't done anything about it. But that's another good point. Get yourself some cards made up. But that was the turning point for me with street portraits of given that challenge by the guys from the cohort to go and get 5. As it was, I got 7, and it's gone on from there.
That's wonderful. Have you? So that'll go the other direction. I guess your approach is you ask the permission in advance. I know some photographers will take the picture and then walk up and introduce and show them. Have you ever had where somebody's agreed and they looked at the picture after and then changed their mind?
No.
No? No, that's good.
Never had that. I've had people say to me, no, I don't want my photograph taken. And they were a lovely old couple on the same day, in actual fact. And I said, I'd like to take your photograph. And the gentleman took over and said, why? And I told him, and he said, no, no, not for us. And by that time, of course, I was comfortable now. And I started a conversation with him. I said, oh, come on, it's only just a photo. And he said, no. I said, okay, I'll leave it. And I walked on. Another incident where it was made me laugh, actually, because I was walking down the South Bank on the Thames, and there was a couple there. The lady had quite a large DSLR around her neck, something like a Nikon 7000, 7100, something of that nature. And her husband was walking behind her, and she said, I said, oh, can I take your photograph? He had a beautiful character on his face. And he went, what for? So I said, I'm doing a project. Use that same line again. And she said, oh, come on, Bill. She said, don't worry. He didn't forget him. Come on, let's move on. And I said, oh, what do you think? He said, no, you take my photograph. I don't mind. And I got a great photograph of him on the South Bank. I showed him the image. I said, would you like me to send a copy? He said, no. He said, that's fine. Just carry on.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You find, obviously I don't do street photography myself, but I do find that when I'm out walking around with my camera, I'll often get stopped by people to take their picture with their own equipment. Do you find that happens to you as well? As you've taken your picture and then they're handing you their camera? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, they will, because they see the camera, and they obviously, it obviously depends what sort of camera you've got. I haven't got this. This is my XE1, which I normally take with me. Normally a lot of people will say, would you mind taking a photograph for me? And of course you just oblige and you do that. Very rarely though will I say, can I take a photograph with my camera now? If I'm offered that, I just do their bit and leave it. I think sometimes you overstep, go a little bit too far with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that one of the things I like about being a photographer in photography is that I'm behind the camera, not in front.
Yeah.
So that I'm kind of like you, but I find that this past summer I was walking around Montreal, and I was telling my wife this, about every 10, 15 feet, somebody would be stopping me, said, would you mind taking a picture?
Yeah.
And and people that wouldn't hesitate to hand over a nice camera. One couple actually handed me an iPad to take the pictures. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you're handing me an expensive piece of equipment, and why are you being so trusting?
Yeah.
Then I answered my own question when I picked my own camera up. It's like, well, I'm not likely to run off with theirs when I'm carrying this, my own gear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're looking for a subject or a scene, what are the kinds of things that that draw you to a scene to take a picture? I've often heard that people are taking street photography. They're looking for snapshots in life. They're looking for different scenes and occurrences, and in some cases, they're looking for a specific look or something to a person's face. Is there something that draws you specifically to an image or to a person or to a couple that inspires you to approach them?
Yeah, I think when you see something going on, there's a sort of an interaction with a couple, which is they may be trying to work out where they're going. They're looking at a map or something of that nature. That draws me to that scene. Again, light does draw you to the attention with you. For instance, if you're looking to create deep shadows in your particular image. But for me at the moment, the one thing which I'm concentrating on, which I'll take it we're going to do a screen share soon.
We are.
Oh, dear. I'm working on a project called Life at 1/15 of a second. And I like to see movement in my images. I think it's something which I've always liked to see. And so what I'm looking for there is, although I'm experimenting now with mono in this particular genre, but I like to see the color. I like to see movement. And it doesn't bother me. In actual fact, if the image is just totally 100% complete blur. But that's one thing I'm looking at. Then, of course, you've got scene settings where you've got a very strong background and you're waiting for that individual to walk into it. You may be looking to create a silhouette against that background, or maybe there's something significant on the background which you want to try and tie in with that person walking forward into it, or away from it, depending on what on that particular mural which is on the wall. So those are the sort of things that I would look out for. Some of the times, many times, I'll actually just stand in a particular spot, and then you blend in to the background. People don't notice you so much, and so lifting your camera up as people are walking past or into your line of vision is a very easy thing to do. And of course you've got your other little tips which you learn, where you're focusing on something high and you do your chimping as always, and you take the photograph of someone and they're literally right in front of you, but they think you've taken the photograph of the building behind. Little tricks like that. And the other one is hooking your arm as you're walking past and just clicking as you go past that individual, just trying to sort of catch that. But generally what I'm looking to do is build on my project at 1/15 of a second and looking for scene setting if I can.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a wonderful segue. I'm going to go to screen share now and pull up your portfolio on your webpage.
Great.
So we need to do this correctly with the version we have here.
Yeah.
It tells me I'm now screen sharing.
That's right, you are.
Okay, so this is on your website. Obviously, you've got a very complete website. We're going to explore some of the other pieces, but I figured we'd start with your portfolio and look at some of your work.
Okay.
And then once we're done with this, I'd like to go back and talk about the show itself.
Okay. If you want to freeze the screen so that that I don't interrupt the image which you're showing.
There, I think I've frozen it.
Should have done. Yes, you have. No, you haven't.
Okay, good.
Don't worry.
Now let me try one more thing here. I'm inexperienced at this. No, that didn't work. How do I freeze that? I know I've frozen it for me.
When you went to the screen share, you should have been given an option to present to everyone.
Okay, let me try. I'm going to stop screen sharing and try it a second.
In case anyone is wondering.
Gone to it.
Oh, we got to freeze up. Bruce is back.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back, Bruce. Yeah, you still got the screen interrupting.
Okay. Yeah, it didn't prompt me to present all. I'm wondering maybe
Okay.
that's because I'm not the broadcaster.
May be the case actually. Okay, I'll tell you what we can do then. If I'll get rid of your website and I'll put mine up. What I can do is I'll put it up, and then sorry about this, folks. Yeah, this is the third option, share, and then when it comes up with a green bar, just to let you know, it says present to everyone. So that's that now.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't get that bar. So
okay. So what I'm going to do is you tell me where to go, and then it's going to be me operating my own website. This is fun.
well, I did hijack your show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I actually you mentioned life at 1/15 of a second, and that was one of the videos that I wanted, or projects I want to look at, and I wanted to look at your street in mono. So why don't we do it in reverse? We'll start with life at 1/15.
Okay.
And kind of scroll through some of the images there, because this is I'm a believer in, depending on the imagery you're taking, of things being tack sharp. But when it comes to people and it comes to interaction and things like that, the thing I like about these images is it gives you a sense of life and involvement as opposed to something static. And it makes you feel more like you're in the image as opposed to an observer of it.
Well, this is exactly what I feel about street photography, because if you actual fact stand still and watch people going on, the brain is a very, very clever part of our body. You know, it takes everything into consideration. It knows that people are moving, so we don't really see blurred movement. But when we take the photograph, having a static image of someone walking, to me, it looks strange. And so I hit upon this idea of trying these, with these cameras now, with the image stabilization, 1/15 of a second isn't that difficult to do. But just to have that element, that small element of movement as people are walking past you. In this particular case, you can just see the lady's foot and the gentleman's head are just moving. And I like that, because that shows they're actually moving.
Yeah, it shows a transition through the scene. It adds
exactly.
It gives you a sense of what's going on. Yeah. There's a wonderful image that's I'm not sure how many along. It's a woman walking, and there's another woman with a baby stroller in the background.
Okay. So this particular one here, it's got the fella, but you can see he was moving his hands to create the image.
I like this one as well. Oops, if you go back one. I love the angle of this. How is this one of those shots from the hip?
Yeah, basically, I took this with my X100S on silent mode, and I just got really lucky in managing to compose it. He was literally sitting the other side of the carriage with me. It is taken at 1/15 of a second, which is just goes to show you how good the image stabilization is these days. But yeah, and I took another one of the other guy who was sitting next to him on the other side, and they were both reading the newspapers. They just didn't know. So yeah, I was pleased with that one. So we're looking for the one with the that was the guy sitting next to the other fella reading his newspaper.
Okay. You're
again,
almost there.
they were an Italian couple in Piccadilly, just chatting away, and I took it and then realized I had left it at 1/15 of a second. So it's part of my project. It doesn't show any movement. You're looking for the one?
I think it's the next. This one here.
This one, yeah.
I love these kinds of shots.
Yeah.
In my own photography, one of the things that I like is I like finding the ordinary everyday that somebody looks at, but they don't stop to look at it. And this is a scene that somebody sees every day. But the motion gives it life, gives it motion. It's something that's familiar, but it's I don't know. There's something about this image that really kind of grabbed me.
Yeah, I think I saw both of them walking down the street. I think this was taken in Guernsey, and the ladies were off shopping, and I was just standing still in the middle of this lane, and I saw the lady with her red trainers, and I saw the lady with the red pram, and I thought, well, if I get lucky, I'm going to have some separation between them. Again, I'm not worried about the blur. I'm not worried about it, but really, this is just to sort of emphasize the color movement of the two, and I think it's just about worked. Just about worked.
I like that one. I think it's a good example of what you were talking about with the concept behind it. It's just enough to give you the blur, but you get good definition. I mean, the woman would be recognizable, maybe not the one in the back because of the depth of field, but it also gives you a good sense of life. You get an idea of what maybe the time of year and things like that.
Yeah. So
it's a neat project to do. Do you have plans to what to do with the project once you deem it complete?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm into printing in a big way. I really want to start doing a lot more printing. I've had a printer here sitting for about the last 2 years, not doing anything with it. So what I'm doing is doing small 7x5 prints of these images and putting them into a book. It's a project which I don't think is not done in any stretch of the imagination. As I start to look for different style, as I say, I'm now experimenting in mono with it. Well, I'm not sure whether it works at the moment, but it's that's open to debate. But yeah, so the idea is to continue the project, to print and put them into books. And I don't know, maybe create a blurb book at a later stage, but that's as far as I've got with the potential idea of the project.
Okay, I like it. Maybe we could flip back to your portfolio. I wanted to go back, and you mentioned it now. I wanted to go look at your the mono gallery.
You're right.
And one of the things that, for me personally, I love black and white photography.
Yeah.
I don't find that I'm particularly good in it. So when I see images that are good, they draw me in. And I quite liked your black and white. And I find that for me, the street photography that I'm drawn to and enjoy looking at more is in black and white.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why that is, because typically black and white is all about shapes and forms, whereas street photography is all about the content and the people that are in it. So
yeah,
one of those kind of dichotomies. I'm just trying to flip through to one of the images I like. Got a wonderful, the next image actually of the train platform. This is something that we don't have where I live, so
right.
I like to look at them as well.
Yeah.
And you said you're just getting this one underway, or just started really?
Yeah, this in actual fact, I'm looking into doing more mono. It's something which I'm consistently looking at other people's work on the internet, and I buy loads of books. And mono is I've always enjoyed taking mono photographs, but with regards to the street, I do like the color which is in street photography. But that said and done, now I'm starting to appreciate more what can be achieved with mono work. In this classic example, of course, we've got the train, which is the movement behind. And it made the reason why I took this photograph was looking at the different shoes they're wearing. Now, when I was working up in the city, everyone wore a suit. But I don't remember anyone ever turning up. We never would have seen a fella standing at a station without a tie on, reading the newspaper, although he's got a suit on. There's a lady there behind, like from the 9 to 5 movie. She's got trainers on, and these different attitudes now that we're appreciating in London, which gone are the days of the bowler hat and tied up umbrella and pinstripe suits. It's a very, very easy attitude up in the city, and that's what originally caught my eye. And then, of course, when the train came in, that sort of added the different aspect for me, and that I think is what I've now got to start to experiment more with. Is not necessarily the fact you're creating just a straight mono image, where you can adjust and play with contrast and light and underexposed and so on. But for me now, I think we've got to start bringing some movement into it, which adds to that the image for me.
I agree. I think this particular image is quite powerful, and the train is one of the big contributing factors.
Yeah.
Do you actually shoot it in mono, or are you doing the conversion after the fact?
I do sometimes shoot in mono, yeah, but obviously what I shoot with the Fujis, I use RAW plus JPEG. Now the JPEG will show on the back of the screen as a live view as a mono image. So generally I use either the red or the green filter and the mono option. But obviously when I bring the file into Lightroom, it gives me the RAW version, and then I start to manipulate and change the image in Lightroom.
Right. There's one image, it's the second to the last one. And it was another one that I find very striking.
This one.
And that one. And, you know, it's when I first glanced at it, you know, you stop and you look again. My first impression, so he actually was a musician. And then I realized afterwards, he's digging in a camera bag. Yeah. It's the same thing. You've got that motion in the background, except that it's a static piece. Yeah,
this is a really clever trick which I was taught by a photographer called Alex Lambrecht. Alex is a lifestyle photographer, and the two of us here, this is Simon Burgess, who used to be in the Arcanum, but unfortunately because of work commitments he couldn't continue. And we were on this workshop, and what we in actual fact had been instructed to do was to set up our cameras with the flash either on the hot shoe or off, off using a lead. Set the camera to f11, put the flash at full power, and I think we were working aperture priority, so it didn't really matter what the shutter was fired at. I think in some cases the guys had gone to manual, the shutter speed was down at ridiculous, like 1/15 of a second. But the flash did the job on Simon and stopped him dead. But of course, the rest of the image is still moving after the curtain is the flash is gone and the curtain is still open. Mm-hmm. So it's a great trick to know and learn how to use. And I would say I've probably only got 3 or 4 good examples of this. There is another one which I've forgotten to put on the website here that I took of a busker, and I did exactly the same thing. I walked past him and had the flash on full power. The aperture set was at f11, and I think the shutter speed could have maybe even at 1/8 of a second, and you freeze the front action, but because the curtain is still open after the flash, you get the movement afterwards.
It moves. No, that's a great trick.
A superb trick.
Now I'm gonna have to remember that and to give it a try.
Yeah,
you're actually getting me inspired to maybe go out and try some street photography.
That's what it's all about.
So, what I'd like to go to next is I'd like to talk about the show, because I've got quite a list of questions and things that were offered up to me. So
I'll come out a screen share.
Yeah, let's come out and drop out a screen share.
Okay.
We'll come back to your site in a bit.
Yeah, it's going to come back. Yeah, I'm back.
There we go.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about the show. Obviously, we're now at episode 79.
Yeah.
You've been going for a while. It's a weekly thing, so you've been going for over a year now.
Yeah.
Where did the inspiration for the show come from?
I used to watch a show which was put out by Leo Laporte, Twit Photo.
I'm familiar with it.
And I used to love the show. I thought it was absolutely superb that every week with his resident photographer, I've forgotten the name now, they used to interview a photographer from somewhere around America. And I used to love it. I used to think this is great because you're getting to know the photographer and getting to know a little bit of background and the equipment he uses and the type of work that he does. And I thought to myself at the time, I'd like to do that. I really would like to do that. And I didn't do anything about it for a little while. And then Martin Bailey, who's an English guy based in Tokyo, has a regular podcast, and he's over 500 episodes now, Martin Bailey podcast. And he was looking for people to join him on his 400th show on the basis of how he has inspired his viewer. Well, there was nothing in the equipment side because he used to do these in-depth reviews of equipment, or still does. But what in actual fact Martin had inspired me more for was the photography, the printing, sorry. So I sent him an email with a photograph of me holding 2 prints and saying, it's not the photography that's inspired me, but your printing skills. He's a fantastic printer, wrote a fantastic book. And he said, right, I'd like you to come on the show. So I was on the show with him and a few other guys and going through it. And afterwards, I just said to him, I said, I'd like to do a show like that. And he said, do it. But remember one thing, and I've said this before, so it's a little bit boring to regular viewers. Stay committed to it. You're going to have some ups and you're going to have some downs and people are going to cancel on you. He said, but stay committed and you will enjoy it as time goes on. And that's how it really started. It's something I'd always wanted to do. I had this idea of, going for anyone that I could think of that, the top photographers, Michael Kenner was just an amazing artist to get on the show so early. And then there was Ted Forbes, and I had Martin on, obviously, and Valerie Jardin, these sort of, and what I found was people want to talk photography. They want to talk about what they've done, pretty much what I'm doing now. And it was just fascinating to me to sit there and listen to what they had to say about their work, the way they go about their business. Some are not that well-known photographers, which have got an every day-to-day business, but create fantastic work. So it was just one of those things which I just wanted to do. And as I say, 79 episodes to date. It's I've really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I quite, well, as I said at the start, I quite enjoy your show. It's, for me, I found them very insightful in some cases. There's some of the photographers that you've interviewed that are farther down the path that I'm treading on myself. So it's to get that insight and have that access to listen to their thoughts about the creative process, how they got into photography, how their work has evolved. For me, it's fascinating, both not only just as a photographer, but just to see the working, or get a feel for the inner workings of another creative mind.
Yeah, that was very true.
And the wide range of photographers and tips and tricks and different ways that they do things. It can be very inspiring. It can also be kind of daunting. You have one gentleman on, and his name escapes me, but he was a photographer that moved to Arizona and has a business. He had a business selling in the Grand Canyon, and his story struck me because he basically jumped off the cliff, as it were. He sold everything up and moved to a different country and said, "This is just I'm jumping in both feet."
Yeah,
and that was very inspirational. My wife pointed out that don't you even think about doing that. But
that was Alan Brio, which, funny enough, again, I'd seen him on another show which I was watching, which was Photo Espresso, which it is not on anymore. It was a German presenter. And he got to know Alan very well, and Alan had been on the show quite a few times. So yeah, but Alan had, as you say, he just decided he'd been in America for some time studying, and he wanted to do photography, and he went to Arizona and does very well for himself out there.
Indeed. And obviously, not to put anybody in particular spot, who are some of your favorite guests?
Oh, that would be unkind of me to say anyone in particular. Yeah, they're. I think
perhaps rephrase.
Rephrase the question.
Who, I guess, when you start out, obviously you've got ideas and who you would be able to get on your show, and you'd like to reach. Who is somebody that you were able to get on your show, and weren't sure that you would be able to do that? So I guess it would be not a personal best, but somebody that you had thought, if I get this thing going, then maybe I'll be able to get somebody like that interested.
Yeah, well, definitely the one that on that particular list of you, the one person, because I just admire his work, and I'm not really a landscape photographer, although I have got some landscape on my website. It would be Michael Kenner. I sent an email to him. I didn't think for 1 minute that I would get a reply. In actual fact, I go back a stage further. The very first show, which I was so nervous at, I sent an email to Frederick Van Johnson, and I explained to him what I was going to do and that I wanted to start this show. And because he is probably, in my opinion, one of the best presenters of an interview style show on YouTube, would he be my guest, my first guest? And he agreed. And so Frederick Van Johnson, to get him on in the first show was amazing. And then Martin and Valerie followed, and obviously I knew them, so that was okay. But to get Michael Kenner, Michael being effectively a photographer, which is effectively, in my book, at the top of the tree. He's out of the top drawer of so many people you talk about in photography. To get into a conversation situation with Michael, to say, this is what the show is, would you like to do it? And to get the reply back, I'd love to join you. Let's get it sorted. I'm traveling to Dusseldorf, to Paris, to London, back to Seattle. I can slot you in then. Was just purely amazing. And I thoroughly enjoyed chatting to him. And fortunately, I met him the following week when he came to London to do a book signing. And he is such a nice, gentle person. Added to that, what also Michael's done for me, a person which originally said no because he was camera shy, is Bruce Percy. Now, Bruce Percy is a Scottish landscape photographer. Bruce went away for a week of photography with Michael Kenner. And Michael mentioned him to Bruce. And Bruce said, oh, Paul's made contact with him. He said, well, why don't you just get on his show? He just wants to talk about photography. And I got this email from Bruce, and he said, Bruce Percy, and he said, is the offer still open? I said, of course it is. And we had a great show. So I can't say for 1 minute there's a favorite photographer. Yeah, Michael Kenner's a huge favorite of mine, but Rinchy Ruiz, superb street photographer, Thomas Loutard. There are so many that I can't even remember all of them straight off, unless you prompt me. But I couldn't. I wouldn't say that. Yeah, they're my big favorites.
Yeah, well, that's quite an extensive list of photographers. I mean, obviously for me, there's many that I haven't come across, and since interesting enough, since then, I'm now running across names. And I remember that. I remember the person from this interview. Yeah. And then there's some that comes up. If you were to be able to interview any photographer, and they don't have to be with us any longer, who would you look to?
Oh, that's a great question. I've got to remember that one. Superb question. Well, obviously, being a street photographer, I suppose I would love to have spoken to Henri Cartier-Bresson. Mm-hmm. But the one person, the one person I would love to have sat down and had a cup of coffee with would be Soul Lighter. Such an unassuming man. I saw the video of him made by I've forgotten the guy's name now. Thomas something. It'll come to me in a minute. Thomas Leach, who made the video of Soul Lighter. He would be a photographer. I don't think it would be an easy conversation because he was such a shy man and unassuming man. Mm-hmm. But I would love to have had a chat with him. And then, of course, Ansel Adams, I suppose, as well, would be a great person to talk to because he's a landscape, and it's not my thing, really, to be quite honest with you. But, yeah, those three I would say would be that I'd like to. Present-day photographers, top of my list, Mr. Trey Ratcliffe, when he gets back off holiday.
Yes. Yeah, he would be an interesting guest. One thing that strikes me with your show is, obviously you have a flow that you've developed, and I've tried to mirror somewhat.
Yeah, doing a good job. I've got to watch myself.
It's interesting to me. It seems every show with people they start and there's not a tenseness to them. Some people are more relaxed than others. But you get into the point where you can tell that it's become a conversation amongst friends. It goes back and forth, and it's got an easy flow of memories and inspiration, things like that. It's not, the danger I find in some interview programs or interview processes, it becomes less an interview and more of an interrogation. Yours strike me more as a, not quite over a cup of coffee chat, but a conversation that we're entitled to listen into. And to me, there's a skill involved in that. as an interviewer, as a host, being able to reach into people and inspire them to want to talk about that, and but to get that easy flow, and it's not easy to do. So like, kudos to you in that. That's one of the things that I do enjoy about your show.
It is one of the things. Obviously, I have my prompts as regards to the subject matter, like obviously you have today, but that's the, I think that's the ticket which I've been able to actually create. It's not an interview. I want to know about the person and how they got into photography and what makes them tick. But by creating the conversation and just dulling it down a little bit, not the direct swinging lamp, what's your name, where you're from, what camera do you use, that sort of thing. By creating the conversation, I'm pleased that I get some lovely comments on YouTube and emails to me with regards to the show. So I'm obviously getting it right in some cases.
Well, I think so. I quite enjoy it. It is another stepping along this stuff I wanted to talk to you about. Going into a completely different style, let's talk about your new seminar series that you've started.
All right,
for up and coming photographers. Obviously, you're not interviewing; you're presenting to people en masse.
Yeah.
How did you get the inspiration and get started on that?
Well, this goes right back. Really, the Arcanum being the way this particular sphere too has been set up for me by our master Jessica. It is an interest of mine that when the time comes, the business which I'm working in stops, which that is the plan. The boss is getting close to retirement. I've got to find the new opportunities and new things to do. And I've always wanted to be a teacher when I was at school. It just so happened I didn't get the qualifications to go to university to do it. So this opportunity now, going through the Arcanum, doing this particular sphere, and when the path of the protege starts again, I'll be getting more and more involved with that to hopefully be involved more with the Arcanum in that structure. Setting up the workshops was purely a response to, we have locally a website called streetlife.com. I don't know if you've got it over that side of the pond, so to speak, where people locally put in their requests. So it's all sort of designated to the area that we live in. And one person put on there, I've just got a new camera. I need to know some tuition, get some intuition on it to learn how to use the camera properly. Has anyone got any ideas? My wife saw it and she said, "Oh, there you go. Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I must think that next, before we could say anything further about it, someone had replied to her and said, 'Come and join the Beckenham Photographic Society.' As it turns out, I'm a member of Beckenham. And I know, with all due respect to Beckenham, you're not going to get photographic tuition there. You're going to get critique on your work, but you're not going to get photographic tuition. You're not going to get tuition on your camera. What's the best camera, lens, aperture, shutter, and all that sort of thing." So I thought, right, I'm going to offer out this workshop, and I'm going to start right from the basics. Start off with the camera choice, then go through the camera modes, and then the plan is to talk about all the necessities, the rules, the composition. I'll hopefully set some projects and assignments to those that have been watching regularly. I've opened up a Flickr group for people to put their photographs on, which I'm getting a little bit of response on early doors. So yeah, it's very much in its early days, but again, it's just a short 30-minute show, 20 to 30 minutes of me talking about my experiences. And I do stress, I have said I don't know everything about photography. It's just my experiences of working in photography.
No, I think they're good. I know that when I started looking for more information, like you, I started into photography as a teenager, and I remember taking a photography course at a local college, and they did darkroom stuff, and they talked about shutter speed and aperture priority. And I remember at that point in time, I could not, for the life of me, understand how to pick an aperture, what aperture did, or even what I was going to use it for. And I
Yeah.
left the course, and I still have some pictures, which I will never show to anybody, that I took. And I've got a couple that, at the time I remember thinking, these are fantastic. And I still didn't get it. And I've watched a couple of your workshops. And that I can see the value for people looking at that, because you look around the web and there's lots of, if you know the term to look for, you can find the explanation. But like you said, a lot of people go into a camera store, they say, I want a camera.
Yeah.
The only thought they've got is, I want to take pictures. Good pictures come from a good camera, which I can just see all these photographers out there watching this cringing.
Yep.
And so they come home with this wonderful piece of kit and have no clue where to start. It's covered in buttons and dials, and you start with everything set on green. I've actually got a friend of mine, and when she got a camera, I asked her, how are you doing? And her response was, I'm good on green, referring to full program.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a good place to start. It's something that for a beginning photographer gives them that grounding to, or somebody before they even get into the camera store, which is the ideal spot to start.
Yeah.
To allow them to understand what they don't understand and be able to figure out what they need to learn, as opposed to shooting, hunting, and pecking in the dark, so to speak.
It's a difficult thing, actually, because when the likes of you and I that are regular users of cameras, we naturally set things and we do it, and it's sort of like a second nature to us. When you try and explain it, the worst thing you can do is start getting too technical. I remember in the last show where I was talking about aperture priority, as I'm talking about using aperture to control the depth of field, it suddenly dawned on me, of course, that there's another important little button on your camera which controls the ISO. And then I'm thinking, I don't want to get too confusing here, because if you throw too much in, well, people are just going to say, well, I'm lost here, totally lost. This is not helping me at all. So I'm really trying to sort of put it into departments, into compartments of basic photography, keeping it very, very simple and basic. Now, those that have been using a camera for a while are probably saying, well, I'm not going to have much interest in the first 4 or 5, because he's only talking about the modes. What I will be interested about is when we start talking about composition, talking about the rules of thirds, what's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't. And then, of course, we then start, there will be assignments. I'm hoping people will join in and start doing the assignments later on.
That's good. You mentioned before, and I know some people who watch your show and are involved know what the Arcanum is.
Yeah.
And the path of the protege. Let's talk about that for a little bit, and what your plans are for your path.
With the Arcanum, it's no secret that after I completed Sphere 1, I was very concerned as regards to the direction which I was going to go, how much it was going to cost. That was another major factor which concerned me. And like yourself, we got that invitation to join Jessica on a hangout to talk about a potential cohort. I was always concerned, because coming from a street cohort, sitting in, as they termed, the lounge there, waiting to be selected the next time, I was a bit concerned that I wasn't going to get picked up, because there weren't very many street, if at all, any street masters at that level. So that concerned me to start off with. But now, going through Sphere 2 steadily, I'm not rushing it in any stretch of imagination. I can see the value now that I don't see any reason why, when I complete Sphere 2, that I'll be waiting in Lounge 2 to be, or Lounge 3, I suppose it would be then, to be selected for Sphere 3. Quite what that will be, I don't know. But I'm hoping, obviously, that the path of the protege starts soon, so that I can start getting back into studying up as a master, and then, fingers crossed from my aspect, I can then be in a position to start my own cohorts in the foundation and the Sphere 1 levels, and then build on from there. And then we'll just see how things go. If I think you come to a point, if you don't think you're getting any value for money out of something, then it's time to cut loose and say, thank you for an excellent experience. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because I was disillusioned. Sitting in the lounge there waiting to be selected after going through Foundation and Sphere 1. But when Jessica sort of got that hangout together, I thought, no, I can see more value now. And really, again, cost, when you think about it, if you're going to spend something like around about £500+ to go on a weekend workshop with a photographer, it works out cheaper to be involved with the Arcanum over a longer period of time.
Well, and certainly when you're dealing with photography as a practice, like anything else, practice is where your skill level grows. And yes, while you can take stuff away in a weekend workshop, it's the unusual individual who retains a large degree. You pick and choose the things that you take away from it. And workshops are good for that. You pick up tips and tricks, and your skill level does grow. But like anything practiced over time has far more value, and you retain more. I agree with you. The Arcanum formula is good in that respect. It gives you access to honest critique, as opposed to people that just like to nitpick and pull things apart.
Okay.
And that gives you a chance to grow and blossom as an artist, as a photographer, and gets you exposed to a community of people that have that same kind of mind. So it's like any endeavor where you have people who are creating. You inspire them, and they in turn inspire you and keep you moving. Where it's you have that momentum. Without that momentum, it's easy to put the camera down and realize, I haven't touched that thing in 3 months. Look at the dust on it.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's a good point you make there, actually, with regards to the Canon, because I remember when I first started, it gave me the impetus to go out more and shoot more. I haven't done it so much this year because of work schedule and the like, but it certainly gave me the impetus to sort of say, right, I'm going to go home, I'm going to get on the train, I'm going to go up to London. London's literally 30 minutes away from me on the train. And I can just go up there, take 2 hours of photography and come back, and then, and develop and edit my work from there. But I wouldn't have done that if I'd been involved in the Arcanum. I wouldn't have done that if I'd been involved in a photography shop, photography club, a society, because the majority of your photography is done pre-season, and you're getting yourself ready for your work to be critiqued. And I do that very rarely, and my experiences of judges in photo societies is very, very poor. Unfortunately. And as you say, with the Arcanum, you're not only getting master comment stroke critique of your work, but you're also getting your peers to make comment about your work, which gives you that impetus again to go out and improve your work.
Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful thing. I remember when I put my application together, when I first read about it, I couldn't wait to get my application in.
Yeah.
And my thought right behind it is, well, then this is a place where you're putting your portfolio up. I'm never going to get picked. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to get picked up by Don Komarechka, the Snowman.
Yeah.
And who was somebody I was already following, and I had been inspired to try taking pictures of snowflakes, something he's known for.
Yeah, exactly.
And one that I was very proud of and thought was fantastic. Was I clearly didn't quite know what I was doing. It turned out okay, but under his tutelage, not only did I master the skills to be able to actually take images of snowflakes, which is quite a challenge with macro skills in general.
Yeah.
But things like finishing processes for images, and what the things that set an image apart from a picture.
Yes.
In my mind, anybody can take a picture. You point a camera, push the button, and you've got a picture.
Mm-hmm.
But an image is something that has a finish to it, has a polish. It inspires somebody to stop and look at it, as opposed to just clicking past in something like a gallery. And those are the things that I don't know where else I could possibly have gotten that.
No.
In the program like the Arcanum has.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a lot of people that there's that comment that was asked in Street Life that time on the website, which started the workshop that I'm doing. I think that I want to learn about photography. Anyone got any ideas? And then for someone to sort of come and join the Beckenham Photographic Society, as it was Beckenham that replied. You don't learn this stuff in the camera societies. They don't teach you camera skills, and very rarely will you get someone who is going to consistently be able to tell you how to edit your images properly. They give you ideas, and there's a lot of members in clubs that in actual fact will show you their outstanding work, and in some cases at my society it is outstanding work, but they say they don't know how they did it because they don't want to give away the skill in case it's copied and they're beaten in the next competition. And that, unfortunately, is where the whole society and the club judging falls apart.
It's interesting you say that, because I saw an illustration somebody had posted, I think it was on Google Plus, of two sets of stairs. And the longer set of stairs had people helping each other up the stairway, and it was labeled national or international photographers. And then the smaller set of stairs had people falling off and nobody helping each other, and it was labeled local photographers. And I thought, that's not so much true in my community here in Ottawa. It's a very helpful community. People will refer other photographers will refer other photographers and things like that. So it's nice. But I know that in many locales that is not the case. It's very much protect your skill, your knowledge, because you don't want the competition. Yeah. And I think that's where, again, that value of the Arcanum comes in that you get a broad range of skills, broad range of knowledge. Our own cohort, as you know, is international and spans multiple time zones. Some people are getting up as other people are going to bed, and then there's the UK's in the middle. Exactly. So I don't think there's another vehicle like it anywhere. And I've used multiple learning tools over the years for various things, and by far this I think is for me the best fit.
No, you're right. You've obviously got Kelby doing his bit, and you've got lynda.com, but they're run differently. They're run basically on the old school of tutor to pupil. And pupil goes away and thinks what the course and the class was all about. And then, of course, what we experience with the Arcanum is an interaction. It's not an interaction with the master, as we call them, but our tutor. But it is an interaction with the guys actually in the cohort as well. And as you and I both know, that conversation is going on daily. It's going on hourly, and as prints are put up, images are put up on the screen, comments are being made, and it is a fantastic idea that Trey and his guys got together and started it off, and I can only hope that it continues to strengthen.
I agree. So we've been talking now for a while. I've got two more things I want to talk, and I guess the easy one is, so where's Paul going next?
Well, I'm going to develop the workshops, that's definite, and the photography live and uncut interview stroke chat line, that will obviously continue. The next stage really for me now is to start organising workshops in London. I'm starting to make some inquiries about how to set these up. I'm going to do a couple of small ones first off in London, and then develop on from that. Now, it won't be me doing all the talking. I'm looking at getting some guys in with professional experience to come in and do some presentations, and then tie that in with maybe a walkabout as well. So there'll be one presenter in the morning with a walkabout, and then one presenter in the afternoon with their walkabout. So that's my next plan, is to create not the online workshop, but to create the physical workshop, attendee type workshop, which will start in London, fingers crossed, middle to the back end of this year, if I can get the dates right and get the right what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to use the term professional, but the right presenter along to the event.
That's very exciting. I think I know there's some folks in my neck of the woods that do something similar, but even that doesn't marry up to the same what you're looking for, that theory followed by practical and that interactivity. So I certainly wish you the best of luck, and I think you've got a great idea, and I think there's a lot of potential, and hopefully it'll take off and you'll find yourself too busy.
Fingers crossed. It does. I think really, again, another thing which does come into that, in the UK, people are very conscious about spending money on such an activity. it's funny. I've had this conversation before with other guests that people across the other side of the pond, and I think in mainland Europe, are more prepared to spend money on workshops to improve their skills. And I don't know what it is about the UK guys. They always seem to say, well, 200, 250 pounds, that's a lot of money to spend on a workshop. So that's the main crux for me now. I've got to get the right price for the right event to really make a go of it.
Yeah, well, that's always the challenge. Where does a perceived value exceed the dollar value? Exactly. And that's your sweet spot.
Yeah.
As soon as that you cross that line, then you're not trying to convince somebody; they've already convinced themselves, and then they get the value out of it.
Yeah.
And then word of mouth. So but I think the start of your online workshop series, certainly the availability of your own work to look at, your conversations on the show. I think all that stuff will work very well in your favor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, fingers crossed that we can get things working. Yeah.
So I have one last thing that I wanted to talk to you. You have a tagline that you use.
Leave your camera bag at home.
What's the story behind the tagline?
The story behind that, yeah. Well, it was in the show with Valerie. And you probably know that when Frederick finishes his show, he says it's time to take that lens cap off. And I was trying to think of something how to finish the show off. And Valerie and I were just talking about street photography and going out and what do we take out when we go. And she said, I just take a camera. And I said, yeah, me too. Just one camera and one lens, which is a blog which I used to write, but since I've had to put that to bed just for the time being. And we both said at the same time, or it may have been Valerie said it, and she said, just leave your camera bag at home. And I said, that's it. That's what I want. And after the show, we jokingly said it. I said, after the show, I said, Valerie, can I use that? She said, yeah, of course, it's your show. I said, that's going to be my sign off. Leave your camera bag at home, because street photography is not about a rucksack and 4 or 5 different lenses. Although I must stress, there's a couple of guys out there that have seen me recently where I've been tinkering with cameras. So I've been taking about 2, sometimes 3 cameras with me. But I'm getting back into the fold of just taking the minimalist of gear out when street photography. And I do laugh when I see people going out where they've got this big rucksack and they've got about 3 or 4 lenses in there. They've got the 28-300 just in case they're a bit sort of nervous and they want to be on the other side of the road. 2 camera bodies, DSLR camera bodies, and they're just weighed down and they're so tired. So to leave your camera bag at home is the ideal street ethos, for want of description. And I've got to get back into that habit. I must.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you. I have as well.
It's been wonderful reaching into your background and hear some of the stories. And it's interesting. We both started, first camera we looked at was a Brownie.
Yeah, well, it's a blue one, but it's close to it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's been wonderful for me. I got to learn a lot. I've learned some stuff about some street photography enough that I think I might actually go out and try it.
Why not?
And see what happens. Like you said, it's only a no.
Exactly right. They can only say no. As if you want to take the street portrait. If you just want to stand on the corner there and take some photographs, after about 5 or 10 minutes, people will just totally ignore you. And that's a good place to start.
I think I just might have to do that. I'm going to wait till the weather gets warmer here. It's far too cold to be standing outside unless you really don't like yourself very much. But well, thank you, Paul. Thank you for letting me hijack your show.
No, thank you very much. That was a very pleasant surprise. Thank you. So who's going to do the sign-off? Is it going to be you or me?
Well, I think I've talked enough. I'll hand your show back to you gracefully.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there we go. That was a big surprise for me being interviewed. God, yeah, that was really strange being the other side of the fence, I tell you. He made some very good questions there as well, so I've got to watch this young kid on the block. That was me once. Anyway, suffice to say, it's Thursday. It's just kicked past the hour and 10 minutes, which is ideal. Thank you so much, Bruce, for such a pleasant chat on the line. It's been great, and thank you.
Thank you.
And if we are going out shooting this weekend, yeah, leave your camera bag at home. All the best to you. Bye for now.
Take care.
Cheers.